Huge news. The fantastic Peter Sage will be speaking at the next Infinite Man Summit. Check infinitemansummit.com for all the details.
Love you, man.
I love you.
Thank you, bro. Wow, please, grab a seat. Feeling great.
Are you ready to get woke? Welcome to the Woke as podcast with your host, Alex Lazarev.
I have there's a girl I used to be friends with a long time ago. Probably one of the smartest and funniest people you'd ever meet. Just so smart and so funny. You're just in tears around it. Unbelievable. And we were friends, and things happened. We just kind of naturally grew apart. I've been on this massive journey, and maybe a year ago or something, she pops onto Facebook and says, "Hey, I haven't seen you in ages. How's it going?" And I start chatting to her a bit. And I realized, talking to her, she's having health troubles, she's overweight, basically atheist who thinks everything happens randomly, there's no God, all these kind of things. And it's such a different world, really just being in that place of just like, no, we're just random and shit happens and blah, blah, blah. It's such a different planet. And I was there like, I really want to help bring her sort of into the light, but so I dropped a few hints, and I thought, oh yeah, I've been on this path, and blah, 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 and I've read a couple of books that just changed my life, amazing, and I dropped a couple of books that, should she read, I'd do it. And it was almost like when her message popped up, and I knew, like, I want to help, but I don't know if she's ready. I think Spirit came in and was like, yeah, give her some information and leave it and see what happens, so it'll be interesting to check in and see, hey, did you read this? But this eternal question, this knowing that we figured out you have to leave people in their journey, blah, blah, blah. But when you know they're truly suffering on a deep level, and you also know that they, not only do they need help, but they're yearning on some level to be happy, to have peace and love in their lives, and they're just suffering. And you have the knowledge and the wisdom and the level of consciousness to bring them out. And if it's a loved one, family member, someone you're close to, how do we balance those things?
It's, as you say, it's the age-old question. I have a certain sort of philosophy around what I would call forced intervention.
It's just anything forced just makes me laugh.
But that's essentially what you're saying. They're not going to do it on their own. Does my love for them include being able to impose now rather than invite? Mm-hmm. And that's the question. And it is a fine line. Mm. If they're in a burning building and they don't want to come out, mm-hmm. And you love them, do you kick the door in, knock them the hell out, put them over your shoulder and drag them out? That's essentially the question. And I've seen times where that has been highly effective. Mm. I've seen times where you waste a lot of time and energy and get yourself burnt in the process. It's a call. There's no right or wrong answer. There's no one size fits all. My own personal experience is, if it is a loved one, then a forced intervention is almost a moral requirement. And I'll give you, I shared the example of my dad from Sage, but I'll share the example of my mum. My mother was an alcoholic for over 20 years, unhappy marriage. But she also had the whole identity as all parents want, which is, I want to be seen as a good parent. And maybe your mother didn't have that, or her way of expressing that was through trying to control you so much that you would get the message beaten into you, because that was how it happened to her. Whatever. We've all got
I'm a good and peaceful parent.
Stranger things have happened, right? But I also knew that I was learning techniques at the time. I became a trainer for Tony Robbins in 2002. I was the youngest serving trainer at the time. I had a lot of skill sets where I was helping a lot of people. I was getting alcoholics sober. I was getting drug addicts clean. I was dealing with suicides and never lost one. I was building up a very strong skill set in intervention. And then there's the one person I most really want to help is my mum. What do you do? Now, the other dynamic there was that because my mum had the identity of a good parent, I would ask, how's things going? And of course, she'd be all smiles and happy and great and wear this mask of everything's perfect. And, and then I know she'd go cry herself to sleep that night. And she was so stressed. And so it was not long after I did the intervention with my dad, same week, I knew I had to do something with my mum. And I called her up and I said, hey, Mum, how do you fancy going out for Sunday lunch? She's like, oh, yeah, I'd love to. I was always traveling abroad, what have you, so I didn't get to see them too often. So I picked her up and I took her to a restaurant. I knew what was about to happen. And we sat there and, we ordered the starters and mains and what have you. And we had the starters and then the main came. I turned around and said, oh, Mum, there's something I want to talk about. And I knew that if I was to approach the subject in a tentative way, she would run down every single escape route, every justification, every brush off, because she was a smart woman, that would protect her from essentially owning the fear that she wasn't a good enough mother in her eyes because she had all this shit going on, as everybody does. And so what I had to do was close off every avenue of escape before she started running. And it was a case of, hey, Mum, I want to talk to you about some of the issues around your health and drinking, right? Which she'd obviously denied was any problem. And even the times I'd say, hey, listen, why don't you come and see what I'm doing in my world as a trainer for Tony? I'm going around the world helping these people. She'd never even come to a seminar, not even in London, because the very nature of coming would admit at some level that there was something wrong or something that needed fixing, which would invalidate the perfection or, sort of mask she was wearing. So, every angle I tried, just come see what I'm up to, see what my life's around, it just shut down. There'd be an excuse. Oh, yeah, no, I'd love to, and then never show up. So I needed something stronger. And I turned around and I said, look, I want to talk to you about, the problem you've got drinking, I says, because, I can see all of your patterns. And the way to block off the escape route was basically calling her on all of the patterns. You say that you're, you haven't got enough time. And that's because you're so busy doing good for everybody else in the church, right? Because that she's got no real level of connection in her life in terms of true friends. I says the reason you've got so much time pressure is because you don't say no to people, right? Which means she'll attract all of the people that'll take advantage of you, willing to put yourself out. Right? She gets a call at 2 a.m. because somebody in the parish's toilet's not working. I'll be there, I'll help. Yeah. And I says, you daren't say no, because if you say no, you'll find out how many people actually are your real friends rather than those who are just using you to fulfill their own needs because, they know they can. Right? And if you realize you don't have, real friends, you've got no real connection. Part of you knows that. So the only way you connect with, get connections with yourself and your primary vehicle is alcohol. And bang, bang, and all these other patterns. I just went through and closed off every door so she couldn't run down. And basically, she sat there, busted. Right? And I'm coming from love. I'm not coming from judgment. I said, but here's the thing. I know that if you don't quit drinking, I don't care what the doctor says about your liver or anything else right now, which, you're not going to be here in 5 years. And, I, as your son, can't stand by and do nothing around that. So, here's what's going to happen. Here's a ticket to the next Tony Robbins event. I know at that point, if she came, she would be in an environment that would expose her to a lot of her patterns and she'd have the resources and strength to move forward. It'd be a positive energy. She got a better chance, right? Because I want to be her son, not her therapist. You can't be a prophet in your own land. So I said, it's £1,000. I paid the price. I paid the ticket. There it is. And I can't force you to go. It's your choice. And part of that is my get out of jail free card of guilt, because I don't want to be there 5 years from now at your funeral and think, if only I'd have tried this. I can't force you to go, but here's what's going to happen. If you don't go, I'm walking out of your life and I'm not coming back. Now, at this point, I've got no brothers, no sisters. I'm the only child. I'm the ultimate leverage, so I have to use that. And I'm virtually crying. She's stonewalled, like nothing. Dessert comes, we eat dessert, nothing. I pay the bill, We get in the car, we're driving home, nothing. It's a house that I'd paid for, and I'm like, say something. Inside I'm thinking, I'm going to lose my mum here, right? And so I'm thinking leverage, more leverage. And as we pulled up in the driveway and she goes to get out of the car, I say, oh, Mum. And she stops, she looks at me, I said, just one other thing. Know that if I ever see you again or if I don't, know that I'll always love you. And I'm like,
So brutal.
And
so brutal.
Anyway, next day, no phone call. Day 2, no phone call. Now here's the thing. If at that point I'd have picked up the phone, I would have lost all leverage. Yeah. If she never come again, I'd pick the phone. I'd have lost all leverage. And I'm craving. I want the phone to ring. I don't want to lose my mum. I'm doing this because I care and I love her. I don't want to lose her. That's why I'm doing this. 3rd day, end of the 3rd day, phone rings. It's Mum. Okay. Where is it? How do I get there? What happened? She goes. She has an incredible time. She does the fire walk. Yeah, she quits drinking for an entire year. After a year, she starts drinking sort of casually then, but completely different relationship to alcohol. And again, completely shifted the context. But again, train yourself to let go of everything you fear to lose. Now, I had to be willing to let go of that. But that was a forced intervention. I can't say, hey, Mom, keep coming to an event and you may show up, you may not, here's a book to read, because the pattern is so strong of the denial that, because they're so scared of ruining this facade that they're trying to project to the world. And if they actually find out that they're underneath, and I went through that in my 20s. I was this entrepreneur superhero that I thought everybody saw. I got a big S on my chest. I'm driving Ferraris, I'm flying Concorde, and I'm doing all this stuff. But underneath, I'm just a guy. There's nothing special about me. Okay, I'm making good business decisions and stuff, but I'm petrified that somebody will actually find out I don't have a freaking cape. So what happens? I've got this whole bravado deal going on. And what if they find out I'm just as stupid as my school teacher told me I was? My school teacher says I wasn't cut out for business studies, wouldn't let me do them. Mr. Dudney, bless him. So for me, I know what it was like to run around putting so much energy into your force field, into your makeup, into your mask. And I saw that was happening to Mum. She was never going to read a book. She was never going to take an invitation. So at that point, that's where I kicked the door down, and put her over my shoulder and run out of the freaking building, even though she's kicking and screaming and she feels that I'm hurting her doing it. So that's, that's kind of, it's a call. But are there times a forced intervention is required? Yes.
That's quite an answer. I suppose you almost have no choice if you have the tools and it's your mom, but for most of us, it's mates, it's friends and people and, I've got a couple of friends and, this is like it's a big thing for me because for me, like I came to the planet to wake people the fuck up. That's it. There's no joy in my life. This is going to sound kind of fucked up actually, but the only time, no, seriously, like I enjoy life and blah, 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 but when I'm not waking people up, like any situation you put me in front of anyone, I don't care if it's my event with a couple hundred people there or just some people sitting around a table or one person I meet on the street, I am compelled to wake them the fuck up. There's nothing else for me here to do.
Yep.
Anything I'm doing is kind of like, yeah, this is nice, but actually I need to wake up more fucking people. That's it. So for me, even though I understand people are on their journey and blah, 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 you have to leave them alone, it's fucking excruciating. When I meet a couple of my old buddies from high school in Toronto, I see maybe once a year. One of them, he had no real, love from his father, yes. Mother, no. But he had a bad experience with a woman who crushed him. He closed up he closed up like 15 years ago. He never came out. Yeah. He never came out. He's got his job. He earns his money. He's got a flat. He has a little boat. He goes on the lake once in a while. It's not living. It's just surviving. There's nothing going to change for them. He literally comes home, watches some TV, watches a movie. The next 40 years that he's going to be around, nothing's going to change. I know it. Nothing is going to change. Ever.
You have to be an invitation.
I've been inviting.
And let go of their journey. And it's the hardest thing as a spiritual master, teacher, initiate to be able to come to terms with, because we get our joy from seeing flowers blossom. And we also have to understand that, yes, the role you're starring in your movie is the role of, wake the fuck up. But everybody else is starring in their own movie, and some choose it to be a warning, not an example.
And I'm just an annoying guy trying to get him to read a book. What's this? Like you, and this really struck me when you said it at your talk. You're the star of your own movie, but actually you're just a fucking extra in everyone else's.
Yeah.
So you're just an annoying extra. Hey man, did you check out that website? Check out that website. Change your life.
Oh yeah, what was it called again? And that's the feedback. And I went through that in my 20s, Sasha, and solidly, it took me 10 years to learn the fundamental truth that if you want something more for somebody else and they want it for themselves, you are wasting your freaking time. They are not ready. They're not going to be ready until they're ready. And my job isn't to get them ready. My job is to be the invitation for when they're ready. And that's a different mentality. Because again, it's frustrating. Someone that comes to me with a Darwinian mentality or deterministic mentality, right? I mean, I'm humored by scientists that still believe that, right? But if you go to or understand the level of indoctrination that has happened, life has a binary equation, as we know. It's love or fear. That's it. That's the synaptic switch of life when it comes to your decision space. Do you make a decision from love or a decision from fear? And it's two corridors, and they are both mutually exclusive. It's only one a gradient. So if you have a situation where somebody blows you off in traffic, if you respond with fear, at the lowest level, just put a toe in the corridor, you may just flip them off and get upset, and then it doesn't bother you. You may jump a couple of steps into the corridor and start screaming at them and be pissed off for the next 20 minutes. You may run down the corridor and want to get to the stoplight and get out and get at it, or whatever it may be. Or you may, go to work and tell your colleagues for the next 3 hours about this idiot that, you had an argument with, through the window. But it's still the corridor of fear. But it's different gradients. The corridor of love, you may just tip your toe and you may look, smile, realize having a bad day and send him some love. You may jump a couple of steps in and just send the guy some prayer and compassion. You may run all the way down, and be able to go meditate and or just see if you can approach him and see if you can help him. Because he's clearly having a bad day and needs a hug. Whatever, but whatever toe you put in, that's the corridor you're in, regardless of how far down you go. So the problem with deterministic mentality is that on a love or fear binary equation, if you feel that you're separate from everything else in nature that's trying to eat you, and it's survival of the fittest, it is a predominant default fear-based mentality, because you're constantly looking to survive, protect yourself, look for threats. It's a cortisol-driven existence. You come from a place of knowing that, we're in Earth school to be able to grow up, and death isn't the opposite of life, it's simply the opposite of birth, and love is actually a far better way to be able to live our life and come from a place of harmonious interaction than us or them, and collaboration and cooperation rather than competition and judgment. It feels better, it's healthier, there's more longevity, there's less stress, everything works at a higher level. To us, it's completely obvious. So for the deterministic viewpoint, when we see that, we're saying, why would you, on God's clean earth, want to choose to live a cortisol-based, fear-based existence that you then spend your entire life complaining about? When all you need to do is change a few fundamental beliefs based upon some better science that backs it up. To us, it's completely obvious. See, to us, in this day and age, rain is completely obvious. We understand gravitation, precipitation, evaporation. 10,000 years ago, we thought God was angry and was, crying, or he was happy with us and filling up the rivers. We didn't know, so we made stuff up and we dealt with it through our own projections and belief systems. So there's a lot of benefit in inviting people to change the beliefs behind why they have that, and inviting them to look at new information that doesn't invalidate where they're at right now, but leaves them open to making better choices based upon better information. And there's also the aspect of them saying, well, that's, again, first level of the awareness, that means I'm clearly not good enough where I'm at now, so to read that book means that I'm not smart enough to see life. No, I'm not going to entertain that. Circuit breaker kicks in, and they'll placate you. And then there's also the fact that a lot of people get secondary gain out of a fear-based existence. Right? At least they're certain about something. They're certain that they're miserable. They're certain that they're frustrated. They're certain they can't fix it. So they have certainty, right? Because they don't get it anywhere else. You and I have certainty, the fact that the universe is involved in a giant hidden conspiracy to make us happy and successful because it loves us, right? So we have certainty at a different frame. Right? You have, they get significance because, let me tell you about all my problems, right? They get connection through that. Again, misery loves miserable company, right? So there's a lot of secondary gain around people that have that mentality that if you were to suddenly give them this utopian level of existence in their mind, where did all my connection go? Where did all my friends go that, we get around and talk the mantra of, everything happens to me? So, first question I ask a drug addict is, who are you without your problem? Because many of them don't know. They define themselves. And at a less extreme example, the problems people have with their job, their money, their lives, their relationship, who are they without those? They define themselves through it. So, they consciously bitch about it and unconsciously do nothing about it.
Here's a question that actually, there was a moment at dinner last night where a version of this popped into my head. And allow me to elaborate a little bit, but what's your obsession with science? And seriously, because, so much of it has been ruined. I mean, it's all about the money and the angle that they have when they do these studies, blah, blah, blah. So a lot of, their scientific method, sure. But so much of it is completely, being used for the wrong reasons, funded by the wrong people, bad intenders. It's a shit show. And when you get into, the higher level knowing of, how the universe really works, reincarnation, karma, really the laws that truly are, the natural laws of the universe, that you exist, you will always continue to exist. That doesn't change. Or the one thing, or that change is the only constant. Every universe is always changing. There's certain universal laws. They're there. You can look at the Vedas and all these ancient texts. You can go into deep meditation and have all these realizations of truly what is. So when I'm there and I'm sitting there in meditation and I have these profound experiences, I don't give a shit about science. Because actually the books, they are the real science. These books that have been written by enlightened masters, thousands of years ago, that's my science. So if we're looking to get people aligned with their purpose, get into their hearts and love, and really go out there and transform this planet, transform themselves and the planet, why convince them with science? I convince them by sitting and connecting to God and seeing what's really there and who they really are. Fuck science. So what is this obsession that you have?
I mean, everything in science existed before science validated its existence. That's one of my tenets that I protest. But the mistake I see in that approach is that many people at lower levels of consciousness have a belief system that's indoctrinated into a limited scientific belief and understanding of Newtonian physics. Science and theology, philosophy, and religion to an extent, spirituality, have always been different ways of telling the same story. Now, science itself is nothing more than the observation of the rule sets that govern the physical matter universe. That's what science is. It's the observation. And the challenge I have with science, before I get to deeper answer your question, is that the way that it's presented today is through a belief blindedness that is addicted to the Newtonian. And part of that is because when, starting back with, Copernicus, he was at loggerheads with the church. He basically was the first person, that created the biggest stir with the church to say, listen, the Earth isn't the center of God's universe. It's, we live in a heliocentric universe or solar system where the Earth revolves around the sun. And he was put under house arrest and everything else. And guess what? Then Galileo comes along and builds a telescope to prove it, which many men of science at that point refused to look through. Either Galileo dies, Isaac Newton is born. And then Newton, brilliant man, through reverse engineering, through observation, figured out, standing in this giant Swiss watch, that we figured out how all the pieces moved to the point where we can predict what it's going to do 100 years from now. That was pretty powerful stuff because before that we didn't have a framework of understanding. But right from the start, when science was born, the dichotomy, the schism that happened was that the church retained domain over the metaphysical, and science could explain how all of this physical stuff worked. And there was kind of an unspoken agreement that that was how it was. So, and they wouldn't interfere with each other. Right? So what happened then, science and religion have been at loggerheads since day one. So when the Darwinian sort of mentality, etc., and science sort of progressed, its fundamental tenet that it was built on is to almost disprove the metaphysical. And anything metaphysical, such as consciousness, was always sidelined. And so that's why since 1929, when the first double slit experiments were performed and quantum mechanics came along and basically says, well, hang on, we now have the scientific methodology to invalidate materialism. Right? The Earth isn't made up of little atoms and particles that exist independently of us as consciousness. Well, we can't have that. That takes us into the domain of the church. Right? And so science has been committed for the last 100 years to invalidate spiritual truth. Now, what I like about it is the fact that science itself is painting itself into a very tight corner that in the next 10 to 20 years will be completely obliterated, because now there's just way too much scientific evidence that disproves materialism and points to the fact that consciousness is more fundamental. It's a superset of physical matter reality, which is a subset. And trying to figure out the metaphysical from inside the subset, you just can't do it. That's why consciousness has been ignored by science or relegated to the point of a biological byproduct of brain function, which it never is or will be. So science, where it is right now, can be very useful for people that have the belief blindedness that's been imposed by Newtonian model, to basically deconstruct that, to open them up to higher levels of awareness that point to the fact that consciousness is fundamental. And some people need that sort of pillar of scientific fundamentalism to stand on. The problem is, and this is where I have my beef, good science should be about continually moving your hypothesis to fit the consistent data. Where we see science today with materialism is that they consistently ignore the data to stick with their false hypothesis, i.e. materialism. And there is no God or metaphysics or anything else, and psi effects and all that, which we've proven beyond in science. So science can be a very good vehicle for waking people up when they realize that what they have been told traditionally by science is, and again, it's only the three primary rule sets, which is physics, which governs the atomic world. It's chemistry, which governs the molecular world, and it's biology, which governs life and the cellular world. So, those three rule sets have been very useful to us. They've allowed us to have this conversation with people that we'll never meet, and create a world that, we're no longer, dying of pestilence and, famine and everything else. It has some good points. Is it going to be misused by pharmaceutical companies and other people? Well, all that is a projection of the level of consciousness that they have. See, an ambulance can be used to run somebody over and kill them. A tank can be used to drive somebody to hospital. The tools of science are irrelevant. How you use them based upon your current level of consciousness and how you project from that is it. And as a hopefully high level of consciousness that I have, or higher than manipulative pharmaceutical companies, shall we say, my role is to be able to use science to wake people up that ultimately would be, or as a catalyst to wake people up that ultimately may take longer if they didn't have that information validated. Does that make sense?
It does, and it really shows exactly what we figured out about you, me, and all my friends who were figuring you out, which is you calibrate your talks and your stories and everything you're doing to the level of consciousness of people that you're at. You're not going to come in with high level shit for someone who's around 200 struggling to break through, because it's like you're speaking Chinese. So it's not that you actually love science; you love using this information to help people break through.
Correct.
Yes. Okay. So that makes a lot of sense. Because for me, it was almost it's just like, I know where you're at, and you do the fuck. It's just like, what? Who cares about the science? Just sit and meditate.
So you and I, we don't need a rubber stamp of approval from some guy in a white lab to know that we can connect to the divine.
Exactly.
Right?
That's why once you've connected to the divine, I'm just like, what's this guy ranting about science? Who gives a shit? So I really wanted to ask you that, but I understand. You're speaking a language they can understand within this.
And what if we were able to prove that we were living in a reality that was a virtual reality that was computed through consciousness, and we could prove that in a physics lab using the highest level of scientific, methodology, and protocol.
It's interesting.
Where would people go with that awareness?
Yeah.
You'd have to start looking at other things than, let's go to war and kill each other over whose label for the metaphysical is right.
Yeah. And you said something as well that's just the last couple of months, it's just been this theme, and it's just so obvious, but it's so powerful. It's so just about consciousness. And for example, and so we're talking about government, capitalism, and communism, blah, blah, blah. It doesn't fucking matter what the system is. It's a level of consciousness. If Hitler was in his heart, if Hitler hit 540 or even 600, we'd all be fat. You and me would be, and he took over the world. You and me would be fascists.
We'd be happy.
We'd be speaking German, and we'd be hugging each other and love, because he would be like, I love all the people, and it would be great.
He would use his incredible leadership skills, his incredible powers of persuasion, his incredible way to be able to formulate arguments and aspects, for the greater good. But calibrating as he did, he used those tools in order to be egocentric, divide, conquer, come from anger, come from pride. And with zero humility or compassion. So again, it's everything. It's the first thing I filter everything through is what's the level of consciousness. Because if somebody's angry and they're acting out of anger, why would I blame them? That's like saying, why would you blame an alcoholic for drinking? That's what alcoholics do. Why would you blame a mosquito for biting you? It's what mosquitoes do. Now, it may be upset. It may itch like crack. But, you don't blame the mosquito, because that's being ignorant of the nature of nature. So, it doesn't mean say you sit there and don't, just allow yourself to be bit. That's passivity. And this is another area I have an agreement with some of the higher spiritual teachers and not others, whereby, love isn't necessarily passivity. Sometimes the most loving thing to do is to pick up the sword. And people that come from this, a state of pacifism and love and hug everybody and everything else, sometimes forget that, because there are levels of consciousness in this world that will take you out at the knees if you don't have the level of defense. And there's, I learned meditation in South Korea, up in the mountains with the Zen masters. And I spent some time really deep diving there, and I was reading some of the books in the monastery library. And one was about a very famous story in South Korea's history, where the Japanese were invading, and they were being slaughtered, and they were going to be taken over. And the king approached one of the most respected, influential monks and says, listen, I need you to go, because they'll listen to him, go and convince all of the monks to go to war and kill people. Right, completely against their entire indoctrination, upbringing, belief system. He says because the monks were far more disciplined, they were had more endurance, and they would form a far better quality army that was the last chance to be able to defend the country. And this monk wrote about his inner torment, about his belief system of love and compassion versus going to be able to try and influence all of the monasteries to pick up the sword and start killing people. And his whole reconciliation process was just a deep dive, without ayahuasca, on how to reconcile whatever his heart was. And in the end, he decided that if he didn't do that, all of his beloved monasteries and everything else would perish or be burnt. And so he went, and he convinced the monks, and they picked up the sword, and they defeated the Japanese. And to this day, you have monasteries that are there as a result of that. But that's the call. What do you do? That's the hero's journey of yourself. I come from a loving place, but this person needs a slap in a certain way, maybe not physically, but maybe emotionally, spiritually. And so to make the mistake that love is passivity is a mistake at some levels. Unless you're calibrating at a level of 600 or above, then that's a different conversation. But I doubt that I'll be there at this time round in Earth School.
Brings me right into my next question, and I can't wait. I really want to know this. Honestly, how hungry, how badly do you want to get to 500, 600? Like, what level do you want to get to, and what are you actually doing in your practices, your daily life, to purposefully raise your level of consciousness?
Two separate questions there.
Yeah.
The first one I can answer quite easily. I have zero intent of getting any further than where I'm at. I have no. I have never calibrated myself. I have never asked for calibration. The first time I had one, it was unsolicited, and it was from you.
Sorry.
I have zero. That's like, again, go to a school metaphor. Yeah, you're in 10th grade. How fast do you want to get to 12th grade? Well, it'll happen when it's ready. And if I fail 10th grade, then there's stuff I still need to learn. But I'm not all jazzed up about trying to graduate. I'm jazzed up about being able to live my truth in this particular moment in 10th grade. And if it's this lifetime or 100 lifetimes from here that I make it, do I try? Because I know my direction of travel. That's a different point. So do I constantly work on where I see my next step in the evolution? Is absolutely. And what that is? That's more humility, less ego. More love, less judgment. Yeah, more compassion, less egocentrism. Yeah, and I work on that. And I don't try to beat myself up if I'm not there. I simply work on how long does it take me to wake up and realize and pull myself back. And so my journey right now is shortening the time from being sleeping awake, in my ego, to being consciously awake and coming from love, to working on the fact that really freaking hooked me, to letting that go, surrendering it, and transcending whatever the lesson was it was there to bring me. And just shortening the time that it takes to wake up, process, and move on. So that's where my focus is. And if that, as a result, as a byproduct, over the next several years, elevates my consciousness to a higher number, I'm super cool with that. But I don't chase the number. That's chasing the grade, not doing the work. The grade will follow when you do the work. I had a friend years ago who says, I just want to be enlightened. It's like me wanting to be a trainer. Guarantees I never will be.
It's a great answer. But again, it's that balance. Like where I'm at now, and remember, again, I'm, maybe 2 years really, really a lot of things going on, and it's been super, it's been insane, and it's just fast rocket up. And it's like, and because I've hit some high levels for a bit, it's so beautiful up there. It's so peaceful and loving and connected. It's just like, oh my God. So not only do I want to be in that state for me, because I'm selfish and I want to feel good and happy and peaceful. Yeah, I want that. I want that because it's amazing, and I know what I'm capable of creating for the world in those states. So I am on a fast ticket. I recognize I have to really enjoy and be present where I'm at, but I want to go up higher. I want, fuck yeah.
Spiritual will is the driving force. I have spiritual will to move forward on my path. That's because I also recognize that my work can help millions and millions of people. I'm very lucky to be able to have a gift that has been given, and I'm very mindful if I don't use it, I'll probably lose it, and I'll step out into an empty street and be hit by a bus. It's like we're betting on you, and you decided to go to Vegas and play roulette and have hookers. So that's not your path. So I know I've got a gift, and you hear the old adage, your purpose in life. Your mission in life is to discover your gifts. Your purpose in life is to give it away. And I'm conscious of that. And I'm through my own journey. And we also have the whole play suit evolution as well. I mean, we're high on hormones in our 20s. We haven't got the experience this time around. To use a movie metaphor, if we are in the star of the movie of our life, people say, well, do you want to live forever? I have no intention of living forever. Right? I have a certain scene, and this will blow your mind. There's a certain scene in the movie of our life where if you muscle test it, means that it's the time we check out. In other words, if you muscle test, do we choose the time of exit before we arrive? The answer comes as true. If you muscle test, do we choose how we go? The answer is false. And what springs to mind for that is that, look, school finishes at 16. All right? You have a certain time. You can't stay on after school, right? Unless you're going to be a teacher. In a movie, if you decide to take a script and choose whatever script you want, and most of the time you will choose a script that should challenge your acting career to improve, because that's why we're here. We're here to grow. So I choose a script in Earth School, in the movie of my life, and I choose my parents, and I choose my scenario and where and everything else to shape me into the script, and I accept the script. And I come in. There is a final scene in that movie that I can't act past. How I choose to act through that movie is free will, and I can choose to show up to rehearsal, and I can choose to be diligent and practice my lines, or I can choose to get drunk and not give a crap and gob off at the director. And one of those movies will end with a pretty decent movie, and one of those end as a shit show. So, again, I have no fear of death anyway, because it's a transient change of script. I've got no issues with that. And are there people that we call soulmates that we have this connection with? Well, yeah, we've probably acted with them before in a different movie. And what happens? They may choose to leave my movie in a certain scene, or permanently, because that's the final scene of their movie, and they're off to work on a different movie. I may never see them. I may meet them in another movie, and yeah, I'll miss them. Just like Tom Cruise is working on set, and he working with one of his co-actors or whatever, and they're friends. They haven't seen each other a few movies, like Anthony Hopkins, for example, or whatever. And he goes and they film the final scene in Anthony Hopkins' part in his movie. 2 weeks, 3 weeks before Tom Cruise finishes his the movie in his final scene, and he'll say goodbye, and he may see him again. He may not work together again. You don't know. That's the movie business, right? But so many people have a fun because they don't have a way of holding that's not final. The fear of loss, the sense of loss, is permanent and scary. So, I have no fear of death because I know it's a transient. It's just the opposite of birth. It's not the opposite of life. But, do I test that the final scene has already been set as a particular time? That's an interesting concept to play with. So all I need to do is show up as the best version as I can in this movie, hopefully not make too many mistakes, forget too many lines, fluff up too many scenes, and hopefully the movie will turn out better than if I decide not to act the best I can.
So, we were just at my event. Most people who are attracted to self-development, self-improvement stuff, most people listening to this podcast, they're probably going to be people who already decided they want to make their lives better. So, over 200, probably. What would be your message to someone listening to this who probably isn't, who's probably still gripped by fear? They're not living a life of purpose. They doubt. They can't quit that job. They're not in a good relationship. They're still really in the struggle. And somehow they found this podcast. Where to begin? Where to begin to get out of those lower levels and reach 200?
Again, it depends where they're at which level. So somebody who's in guilt is going to be struggling with guilt. Somebody who's in anger is going to be struggling with the story that justifies why they're angry. Somebody who's in pride, somebody who's in pride is already on the journey of trying to make themselves better, because that's inherent in the nature of pride. They're just they're still making it all about them. Somebody who's trapped in desire is probably could be a really good entrepreneur or good at setting and achieving goals, but they're not fulfilled because there's another desire that pops up, because desire is a level of consciousness. It's not attributed to an item. And that was a big revelation for me when understanding levels of consciousness. And so it depends clearly where they're at. I mean, one of the first things is to stop resisting where you're at. And that is, unfortunately, people can only hear from the level they're at. Jesus, who calibrated at 1,000, very high-level spiritual teacher, came here to wake a lot of people up. And unfortunately, his message has been so misinterpreted, bastardized, or manipulated, not because of any other reason than the people who were translating his message could only hear it from the level they were at and then reproject it from the level they were at. So, he says, turn the other cheek, and somebody who is calibrating at apathy is going to get beat up more. Somebody calibrating at pride is going to say, screw you. Somebody calibrating at love is going to see the inherent wisdom of being able to come from a place of non-judgment and non-retaliation and holding a space for somebody, and not triggering your own fears in relation to that. Beautiful lesson. But being okay where you're at and not resisting where you're at is kind of the first step. It doesn't mean to say being okay with where you're at in terms of settling for it, because that's another misnomer. that keeps people trapped. Again, that's true apathy. Desire is a very useful level of consciousness to get people out of guilt, shame, and apathy. Pride is a very useful level of consciousness because it carries a lot of energy to it that you can start redirecting into personal growth to take you through that, into courage. But as a general overarching sort of message, the more stress you feel, the more focused on yourself you are. If you can start creating a reason that's bigger than you, other than you, you're going to start finding that life starts to open up in terms of possibilities, less pain, less fear, more inherent energy, because you'll feel motivated to be able to get out of your own comfort zone. Now, what's the strongest force in nature that overrides reason? Or what overrides reason? Love. It's the strongest force in nature. Try taking a cub away from its mother. I had a great example of this a few months ago. I have 2 Jack Russell Terriers, and they were bred for killing vermin. In terms of their, not my dogs specifically, but the breed. My dogs have been brought up with so much love. However, they run away from chihuahuas. It's somewhat embarrassing, right? But they're not out to kill anything. They'll chase squirrels because they love chasing squirrels. But if they corner a squirrel, as they have done, and it doesn't run away, they're confused. They're like, dude, run up a tree, So I was out on the bike with the dogs the other week, and there was a duck there, a female duck, female drake with its little goslings, little chicks, little baby ducks. And the dogs would run around the log, didn't know it was there, and all of a sudden, they're face to face with 6 little baby chicks, and the mother flew at the Jack Russell. Now, in a normal scenario, that's only got one end, right, which is dead duck 3 seconds. Right, now, luckily, my dogs, I screamed, the dogs like, oh, they're not killing machines, my dogs, right, and they moved off. But it really showed me the power that a mother has for the protection of its young, regardless of the odds it's going up against. And I think every mother listening would probably agree with that. So being able to have a sense of contributing beyond yourself brings with it an inherent power, an inherent sense of purpose that it drinks from a deeper well than the ego. And the ego's not going to do that because the ego's about self-preservation. The ego's like, okay, take a couple of chicks and we'll negotiate. Mother, no. It's all about putting yourself in service of something bigger than you. So if you want to raise your consciousness, start thinking, what are your goals about? Are your goals that you currently have about you and you? Is about what you can get, how you can appear to look a particular way so that you can finally get the significance, approval, connection, validation, and that you feel you didn't get as a child, right, through driving the right car, because then you'll have made it? Or is it about, well, no, I feel I'm here for a bigger reason than that, and I don't even care whether you think it's right or wrong, because I don't need your approval. In fact, thank you for spurring me on with your negation, because I'm here driven by something bigger. In classic Blues Brothers line, we're on a mission from God.
Peter, what's yours?
Well, I'll share with you what my current identity is. I feel an identity statement is probably one of the most powerful things you can develop, because your identity governs almost everything about you unconsciously in terms of behavior and decisions. In psychology, they call it cognitive dissonance. If you act out of accordance with how you see yourself. Vegetarians don't eat meat because they have an identity of I am a vegetarian, not because they have different teeth. So, the reasons why you choose an identity, such as being a vegetarian, down to your history, your morals, your decisions, your level of consciousness, whatever that may be. But once you have an identity, you act in accordance with that. I would probably assume that you wouldn't go and murder somebody later today. Right? I'd probably be correct in that assumption. Your identity is not that of a murderer. But if you had the identity of a murderer or serial killer, you wouldn't think twice about being able to kill somebody, because it's your identity. Extreme example, but you get the point. Why do runners run? Because they're runners. But they have the same 2 legs, arms, and biochemistry that we have. Yeah, but they feel angsty if they don't run for a week. Their identity is being compromised. So your identity is a huge part. Most people wear identities by default. They're societally conditioned or imposed. The traditional ones: employee, employer, husband, wife, soccer mom, whatever it may be. Student. So to choose an identity consciously is quite rare. You chose Sasha Dagan. It was a conscious choice, and that then started to bring in aspects of behavior that would just be classed as normal. To go and talk to a girl on the street, for most people, isn't normal. But if you're Sasha Dagan, it's just what you do. Why do smokers smoke? Because they're smokers. A non-smoker doesn't smoke because they're a non-smoker. A smoker who's quit will go back to smoking because their identity is still, I am a smoker, I've just quit. And therefore you're using willpower, which will always have a time limit. So for me, my identity drives a lot of that, and I consciously chose it, conditioned it, fashioned it, and it'll feel right. And you can tweak it; it's work in progress. And it's like a suit, like a set of clothes. It's not who you are, but it's the identity you wear. Now, let me ask you a question: if you were in let's say a corporate scenario, and we don't do that thing, but let's say we were, and you walk into a business meeting, as a young executive dressed like you or I are dressed now, you would probably have a different sense of energy, composure, state, rather than walking in a $10,000 custom-made Italian suit where you looked $1 zillion. You'd feel different. A woman walking into a party wearing a $5,000 Versace dress versus the last one left in the sale in Target is going to have a different sense of self. The same person, different outfit, different sense of clothing, different feeling. Our identity is our clothing. And most people are walking around with the last one left in the sale in Target because they never chose it consciously. So being able to do that, and I have a strong identity statement that governs what I do, and I'll share it with you. I am a divine and guided soul that acts as an open channel for God's wisdom, a powerful agent of positive change who was born to reveal the greatness in others. That's who I am. That's what I do. So what is my mission? Very similar to yourself. To wake people up. Or for me personally, is to raise the global consciousness of humanity. Now, whether I never speak to another person again, but I sit in my own little cave and work on raising my own consciousness, or whether that's through the gift I've been given to be able to write books or do videos or whatever it is, or impact people in seminars in a way that makes a fundamental shift and slaps them out of their low levels or the patterns that they've been adopting for so many years, is almost irrelevant. I have to be the invitation, I have to be the example. Right? But where my life is going, it seems as if it's to write more books, to do more podcasts, to do more events, to travel the world, to expose my message to millions of people, which tends to have the effect of raising their consciousness one or more points. And if I can do that, and I'm in service to the divine as a result of that, then I'll die today with a smile on my face.
Yeah, that's really powerful. I felt like the divine came through you quite strong when you told me your identity. It literally was like, I was like, fuck, wouldn't want a muscle test then. Jesus. Yeah, that's awesome. I never, it's quite enlightening for me because, though I, of course, have an identity now, and I didn't really put that much thought into, honestly. Like, when I was a comedian, it was just what I was. What are you? I'm a comedian. I'm funny.
And therefore you tell jokes.
Yeah.
That's what comedians do.
Yeah, and there was no big thing. It's just, but of course there was so much to it, it was a big thing. And when I was a pickup artist, I was a pickup artist, pick up chicks. That's just normal. Dating coach. And now it's interesting. I guess in a way I'm still having an identity crisis, right? Because, people walk up to me on the street and go, "You're Sasha Dagan." And I am. Part of me, that fun and that authenticity and talking to whoever you want, being socially free, that is me. And yet the pickup part that just wants to fuck a lot of girls, that's not me. That's not me anymore, So there's some elements there that aren't me. So it's really, who is this new identity? Is it spiritual teacher? Is it inspirer? Is it waker-upper? Is it a men's coach? I mean, there's a lot of things, actually. And so I think that's something for me to work on, is to get really clear.
It's an exciting part of your journey of evolution right now. And again, it evolves as we evolve. You know, you don't want to be wearing the same clothes you wore 10 years ago.
Yeah.
That's, you know, there's a new style, new image, new fashion, new purpose, you know, what have you. But recognize who you are is who you are. The identity forms around that. Just like, you know, I wouldn't go out peacocking in some sort of like, you know, 3-foot weird, crazy Muppet top hat. Yeah. Why? Because, you know, it's not who I am. You know, I go on stage, I'm going to look smart. That's who I am. That's my identity right now. That may change, but you know, your identity will govern the clothing that you put on it. So who you are at your core is you're starting to figure out through this transition of your own evolution of consciousness, well, what kind of identity would sort of, you know, what look and feel, you know, what clothing, you know, would wrap that around to look good, that makes feels, you know, yeah, that's congruent with who I am. You know, a businessman will wear a suit. Yeah, an athlete will wear, you know, pants and a vest. You know, there's certain things that just feel natural, comfortable, and are more functional. So it's an exciting time for you to go play with that. But you have access to an unlimited wardrobe of cloth. And you have access to the finest tailors with the best scissors and stitches on the planet. So and you don't have to pay a cent. Your mind selects the cloth. Your heart is the tailor that weaves it together. So you pick the words that resonate, and how the heart then wraps that around is down to what feels good. That makes sense.
Yeah, man. It looks like I got my homework.
It's one of the things we teach at the Sage Business School is, you know, at the end of Friday, day one, we design an identity from scratch and have you declare it. And you want to see the transformations of people walking out from the people that walked in that day. It is a fundamental process that shifts who you are at your ground of being. Again, cognitive dissonance. You're going to act in accordance with how you see yourself. So, and I had a conversation with somebody at dinner last night. Yeah. So, well, you know, I don't know if I quit my job or whatever, and I kind of like my job, but I'm like, well, you know, how do you see yourself? Do you see yourself as your identity an employee? Well, yeah. I says, well, then you're never going to quit your job. What do you mean? It says, what if you're an entrepreneur in waiting? Oh, never thought of that. Of course not. If you're an entrepreneur in waiting, then the second the right opportunity presents itself, boom, the trap is sprung. You're out of there and you're happy. But, oh no, I have to wait until I get a business, until I call myself an entrepreneur, and until then I'm an employee. You're in a closed loop. So identity is everything.
How does this fit into, or I guess it's a separate question. One of the points I'm at is another realization I had. It's almost like sometimes you had these moments where you know it's like, okay, there's a point in your beliefs or something major where you can feel this shift happening, but you haven't 100% taken the, you know, you're getting it, but you haven't really taken the leap yet, all the way through. And I'm there now. With a big one, a really big one, which is, I know I'm a tool for the divine. I know I came here literally to serve. I mean, I feel like my boss is God. And I've had a lot of crazy times when I should have died and I was protecting all this stuff. It's because I'm here to do some big stuff, and you know, I'm protected. I mean, seriously, it's crazy. And there's one thing I could tell you that would make me sound insane. I'll tell you that later. But the thing is, so for me, the big thing is, it's a point where I feel I need to step over this boundary, I guess, where it's like completely giving myself to the divine, completely, like not even these decisions of like, oh, I could do this, or I could serve better here. That's head stuff, man. I can feel it in my head trying to decide how I could do this or this, and what's my excitement, blah, 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 blah. Completely just going, it doesn't even matter what I think I want. You know, so just give it to me. Just completely giving up. It's a big step, and I'm literally on that cusp. And I had moments where like, but no, it's like I'm holding on to this illusion that I still have some choice, but I know it's an illusion. I know that actually I'm just going to do, you know, that I'm not even in control, you know. So it's a big one, and I'm sitting on that precipice right now. It feels like
there's only one word: surrender.
Yeah, it's scary to surrender, totally.
Of course. Yeah, if it was easy, we'd all be doing it. Again, at the end of the year, you get an exam. And it's not meant to be easy. It's meant to validate where you currently are as an authentic benchmark. And if you pass that, expect harder questions the next year in school, because that's the nature of ed school, or normal school. So, being able to surrender the fear is the muscle that is required to be built. And if people ask me, what do you really think the purpose of life is? For me, if I was to sum it up in one encapsulation, it is to learn how to choose love instead of fear in ever more challenging circumstances. That's it. That's what we're here to do. We're here to learn how to choose love instead of fear in ever more challenging circumstances. So, for me, in my early days, the fear could be, what if I don't pass my, college exam, or what if I don't go to college, which I didn't, right? Today, that's not a fear. Oh, what if I'm late for the meeting, right? Those are no longer fears, right? So I won't expect to have traffic in front of me on the way to a meeting, because the divine isn't going to need to give me that lesson. If you're still getting over the fear of being good enough because you have to be on time, otherwise you think people will reject you, expect traffic until you learn how to choose love in that situation, not fear. Throw you in prison. That's a pretty good way to test somebody at where they're at, to see if they choose love instead of fear. Or it could be a stage 4 diagnosis, or it could be the breakup of a marriage that you thought was absolutely the best thing and didn't see it coming out of left field, that your wife's running off with your best friend. Whatever it is, you will be challenged at the level that you're at, and rightly so, until you learn to surrender the fear and learn whatever lesson it is to be able to progress and raise your consciousness. As I said earlier, unfortunately, at the lower levels, it tends to be more painful, because that's what gets our attention. If there's no lessons or no pain at the lower levels, we'll just develop a comfort zone, and that's not why we're here. We just want to sit on the couch and watch TV all day and whatever, and that's not here to give a gift. That's here to develop diabetes, which is going to wake you up. So, to look at where you're at right now, you're going to be presented with opportunities to choose love instead of fear in ever more challenging circumstances, or ever more complicated or intricate circumstances. And for you to turn around and say, yeah, but it's scary, means you're on the right lesson. If it wasn't scary, you'd be in the wrong class. Oh no, I want to be in a classroom where I get 100% score. Well, no, that's because you're more worried about trying to look good and avoid failure than it is learn and grow. And school's not about looking good and avoiding failure, it's about learning and growing. Welcome to life.
So, you've been through some a really big growth opportunity recently, a very big one, and you want to talk a little bit about, because I read your book. It was all about this experience, and you've got your book launch coming out, and it seems like it was really one of the biggest lessons for you, I think. So, you want to talk a little bit about
it's
your latest adventure?
Yeah, and it was an incredible adventure. It really was, and I wouldn't swap a second of it. But I found myself out of nowhere I was in civil court arguing the toss over a business deal on a civil action that I thought was unwarranted and made up, and they successfully spun a contempt of court application, and I ended up getting 6 months in jail as a civil prisoner, as a non-criminal, and again, completely out of left field. And from my perspective, it was a case of, well, okay, if the river of life bends, this is a bend I didn't see coming. It's clearly a graduation event. If my mission, which is I always go back to, is to help raise the global consciousness, if there's one place that needs it, go send me there and see what happens. And that's what happens. I spent, as a civil prisoner, I should have been in a cushy little open jail, but for 4.5 months, I was in the most violent prison in England, and that was Pentonville, and that's a pretty bad place. If you're assessing TripAdvisor stars on prisons, this has the lowest score, and it was again a magical adventure. I was faced with losing everything. As I say, train yourself to let go of everything you fear to lose. And I lost my business. My reputation took a hit because nobody knew what the score was. All of a sudden, one day I'm in court just getting rid of some stupid thing that I said to people, take 5 minutes. And the next thing I'm in friggin' jail for what turns out to be a false allegation of fraud, right? That they'd spun and then dropped as soon as they came out. There was all the financial side, all of the money and legals that the judge awarded against me, which I didn't think was possible, but could. They were going to take my house. My fiance was going to be homeless. My wedding was cancelled. It was, everything that I thought was a certainty, the day before suddenly was taken away. And all I'm left with is who I am showing up in a place where, 3 deaths in 1 week was the worst week I was there. Yeah. So it was, again, I knew I was there to serve. I wasn't about poor me and look what I've lost. It's, wow, look at what I can learn. And I went in and assessed the whole thing. And again, we talk about identity. I knew that was important. I refused the identity of prisoner. I went in with a congruent and cemented identity as a secret agent of change. And so you do what a secret agent of change does. I create change. And I was coaching and counseling and helping and getting people off drugs and preventing suicides and doing all sorts of different things. That created a bit of a movement while I was there. And I again, from a movie's metaphor, I simply surrendered to the fact that I was on location for 6 months filming the prison scene in my movie. And of course I'd much rather be home with my dogs and my fiance, but I chose this movie and at some level, and now I've got to go act in it. So it was amazing. In fact, it's funny because I created a program that I thought would help not only the prison system and save it tons of money rather than waste it and then have no resources, so less officers and therefore more bang-up time, but would actually help the prisoner's mindset. And I created a story called Mud or Stars, taken after the old adage, 2 men sat behind prison bars, one saw mud, the other saw stars. And that kind of went viral through the prison. It went through both prisons. In fact, the second prison I was in, I had an officer, 26 years, that wrote me a beautiful letter saying that the impact that one story had on that jail, because I was unleashed in the open prison. I could put it under doors and help people. All the new prisoners coming in, I could give them a copy. And he said that it impacted 70% of the prison. And you would hear people walking down the corridors shouting mud or stars to each other, trying to cheer themselves up. And it had a profound impact. In fact, I took that and I put it into a new prisoner welcome booklet that I designed. I couldn't impact the prison from the inside with that, but I knew it would have a massive impact on the outside once I was released. And I'm very pleased to say that you're one of the very first people to be able to see the new prisoner welcome booklet that I designed. Everything is strategic in there. It's written, every word in there serves a purpose to be able to help shift the mindset of somebody that's going into prison for the first time. And that now gets trialed in 4 prisons next week. And with luck, we'll have a real strong impact throughout the prison system, not just in the UK, but globally, in a way that I think really shifts the fundamental relationship people have to rehabilitation, to addressing somebody's level of consciousness when they're in there. You can't use that language because people won't get it. But subtly we can do our work. So and what an amazing adventure. I would say I wouldn't swap a second, and it was one of the most incredible detours in the river of life that I've ever been guided down, and hopefully created a bit of an impact.
What an impact! It's amazing. And when you're able to look at it from those levels, you see it was supposed to happen. You were supposed to be there. It was just 100%. I mean, there's no doubt. I was reading the book like, this fucking guy there's no one else that could have gone in there and done this and had this. And it was such a growth experience for you, and you were able to do so much. I think this is really going to have a huge impact. This is just going to keep, you know what I mean? It's huge. It's really huge. And what a unique, they're never going to get someone like you in there, even to hire someone to come in and help. It's just not the same. Yeah. They couldn't have done it. It would have to be someone that's there as a prisoner, right? And it's almost like you got in there in the weakest way possible. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like it was literally like the universe was like, we need to get him in there, but without him actually committing a crime or having hurt him or he's actually done anything wrong at all that's out of alignment with who he is, but still as one of them, so that he could make that change from the inside. The universe is genius. Literally, the universe is like fucking genius, and that's exactly what it was. Yeah. You know what I mean? So you can't, and that's why, when I got to the part of me reading the book, it's like, I hope he fucking sues that company when he comes out as bollocks. But it's like, why? Because it was exactly what you were supposed to do.
Yeah, 100%. I thank them in my meditation. Well, I thank the other players in my movies that are acting the perfect scripts that have been written by the divine that allowed that scenario to happen, so that I can create a more exciting, a more dramatic, a more impactful movie.
Yeah. And if people recognize that everything that's happening to them is really happening for a reason, and it's divine, it's our higher selves, and it's giving us these opportunities for growth to really figure out who we are, it would change everything. It would change everything.
One shift in belief from life's happening to me to life's happening for me, it will just change everything. You can have such a shift in consciousness just through that one awareness. We're going from life's happening to me, and everything happens to me, and blah blah blah, and I'm a victim, to life's happening for me. There's a reason, there's a purpose that this shit has shown up in my life, and so therefore I'm now asking better questions. What can I learn, rather than focus on that? Not focus on what have I lost. That's a difference between a life on antidepressants versus a life of possibility. And being able to take that forward is, I'm excited about.
There's a quote, something like this, in Conversations with God, which was basically, everything you do is basically, everything in life is just an opportunity for you to create who you are and who you want to be. The highest version of who you want to be. Everything. It was something along those lines, and I was just like, it's all just about creating that highest version. Well, my friend,
I think we've covered a lot. Hope there's been some pearls of value in there for the people that have been gracious enough to give us their time. And again, you can take just one little pearl of wisdom and have it shift your consciousness in a way that shapes the entire direction and trajectory of your life. It's not about trying to cram everything in to be able to live it. It's about pick one and make it who you are, as you know.
So, final thought, your book is coming out. Just tell the people what they can do to support you, to get your book, and even if they want to find you and work with you in some capacity, what should...
Oh, thank you. Well, the book is very unique because the book, as you read, it's the actual 11 letters that I wrote in real time as I went through the experience. Every 2 weeks I wrote to my coaching clients. It was never meant to be published, but as you see, it can probably add a lot of value to people. And so when I came out, those 11 letters are put together. It's called the Inside Track. You can download the first chapter off my website at petersage.com. And it's an incredible journey, just reliving it, just going over it and rereading what I wrote. Because again, I was there as that secret agent. I was delineating all of the different techniques I was using, how the mindset shifts that are required, how to practically apply that in a place like Pentonville, in the darkest recesses of somewhere that is just so depressed or angry or dangerous or violent. How do you show up at that level? That's not by accident. That's by strategy. What are the strategies? Because if you can do that for that, you can do it when you have a breakup. You can do it when your business colleagues embezzling. You can, it's the same techniques. So I'm very excited for the book coming out. I do some private coaching. It's in a very limited capacity. I take on 5 clients at a very high level. But I also have my group coaching program, which is who I was writing the letters to. So you can find all the information on petersage.com or at the back of the book. I'd love people to read it just to get that level of armor that they can put around themselves that will make them impervious to adversity, which is what usually takes so many people out and robs them of the potential to give their gift.
Awesome, dude. I've read the book. It's great. Read the book. There's no excuse not to read the book. Thank you so much. It was amazing. The whole week, not just the podcast, the weekend and meeting you, it was all fantastic. Thank you for being here, and I look forward to our next reunion.
Me too. Can't wait.
Thanks so much.
As it's Ecuador, here we come.
Dude, I can see it. Us meditating, samadhi, beautiful. It would be epic.
Awesome.
Cool. Thanks.
Thanks, brother.
And yes, Peter Sage will be speaking at the next Infinite Man Summit this February 2019. InfiniteManSummit.com has all the details.